Sejin and Madam Un's granddaughter ended up staying at the cafe to chat while Junha left. As the woman wanted to keep in touch with a friend of her brother, she asked Sejin to write down her number on her phone. At that exact moment, Taekyung was calling his possible cousin, and Sejin became curious, wanting to know what was happening. Thus, Sejin was very accommodating and even later took Junha's sister to the man's apartment. There, when the siblings were alone, the woman mentioned meeting their grandmother. However, since Junha is proud, he didn't want to know who the person was, fearing someone might want to take his money. In the next scene, we see Sujayam go to the cafe to confront her biological mother. Even though she tried to keep this a secret, the woman could only cry and ask the girl to forgive her for the lost time. Meanwhile, Madam Un agreed to take a DNA test with her newly discovered granddaughter, just to guard against any fraud. But even if the result was negative, the family made the most of the time of uncertainty by welcoming her into their residence. While this emotional encounter was happening, Sejin and Junha discovered that he and his sister were supposed heirs of Madam Un, through their deceased mother, and of course, the man was as surprised as Sejin by this news. When Madam Un learns that she might have another grandson, she becomes excited and asks the woman to call her brother to the residence. Later, the DNA test results arrive for Taekyung, and now they officially have a new cousin. With this joy comes a misfortune named Junha. As always, he brought sadness to the family home when he caused another commotion, just to claim that he is also Madam Un's grandson. Obviously, the lady falls ill after the revelation, which causes her new grandchildren to leave quickly, and to avoid reprimand from his sister, Junha lies to her about his history with the family. Now, after Sejin learns about everything, we already knew that her greatest dream was to join this family. So, having Junha in the palm of her hand, the woman sees a great opportunity to achieve her goal. The next day, Madam Un woke up a bit calmer and decided she would go to her first daughter's grave to finally see what her face looked like. However, at the site, she ends up running into Junha, who had also decided to visit his mother. After Madam Un cries in front of her daughter's resting place, a daughter whose face she never even knew, she then sits with Junha to give the man a chance. Speaking of what I think, I believe the man will take advantage of Madam Un's vulnerability to get closer to her, using the excuse of his mother's death. Later, we see a meeting between Junha and Sejin, and during their conversation, it's clear that my suspicions were correct. The man is trying to get close to Madam Un by exploiting her vulnerability. Therefore, the next day, Junha picked up the lady at home to have a conversation with her, shortly after Chansik had met with him. It turns out that the head of the family told the man to choose between two options, being Madam Un's grandson or being Hanol's father. Using this conversation as high drama, he brings the matter to the already pressured lady, as supporting Junha means opposing Taekyung and Yeondu, two people who have greatly helped her and whom Madam Un doesn't want to disappoint. On the other hand, Junha is the son of her daughter, who was taken from her. I understand this is quite a complicated situation. However, when the pair reaches the lady's destination, we see Madam Un bid him farewell as if she were never to see him again, implying that she chose to side with Taekyung and Yeondu. Since we mentioned the doctor's name, in the next scene, he visits Junha's apartment to talk with him. From the first moment, Junha kept telling Taekyung to give up on being with the protagonist and Hanol because now Madam Un will side with him after discovering he is her biological grandson. Well, Taekyung didn't lower his head, nor was he the one who started getting aggressive. He merely responded to Junha that he would never leave the great loves of his life and that if Junha was getting agitated, it was because he was afraid of losing, something the main couple knows won't happen. Moving on to Sujayam, Yumayong asked the cafe owner to deliver watermelon juice to the company during the girls' recording breaks. This was the first time the two had met since Sujayam discovered the woman was her mother. Thus, To prevent Yumayong from suspecting, the girl soon pretended she needed to go to the bathroom and went to the cafe to question why the woman was pretending in front of others not to know her, especially after having apologized. Meanwhile, Yumayong realized that Sujayam was not in the bathroom, and when she went out to the street to look for her, she ended up meeting Dongwook. Suspecting where his daughter might be, he asked Yumayong to wait for him at the company. However, Yumayong did not go up, and when she saw Dongwook merely taking Sujayam out of the place looking upset, she realized something strange was happening. Later, Taekyung could no longer wait for an answer and decided to go talk to his grandmother, who has been ignoring him. However, the doctor is surprised when he finds her in tears, apologizing to him, saying she doesn't want to have to choose between her grandsons, but she also understands why no one wants Junha in the family. After this situation, when Taekyung returns home, he doesn't even mention the conversation he had with his grandmother to Yeondu, because he doesn't want to worry her. Meanwhile, Jang Ho returned to his ex-wife's house, aware of what's happening in the Gong family home. The man wants to be close to his daughter to ensure she's not involved in a plan with Junha to hurt more people. The next day, Taekyung decided to put an end to this drama. When he arrives at the Gong family house, he finds his grandmother announcing that from that moment, everyone will have to live with Junha, in respect to the memory of her deceased daughter. It's at this moment that the doctor declares he will no longer be part of this family, thereby removing his name from the family registry, as Junha's is being added. Of course, now everyone sides with Taekyung, except Madam Moon, who remains conflicted, and Junha, who is benefiting from the situation. Yeondu did not know that her husband was going to make this decision, and when she found out, it was through a call from Junha. Thus, she realized that the only way to resolve this was to go directly to the source of the problem. So, at her ex's apartment, she begged him to leave them alone, and afterwards, she went to sleep at her mother's house. Not having the protagonist at home allowed Madam Moon to have a private conversation with her grandson in the apartment later. After asking the doctor to remain in her family along with Junha, Taekyung explained that he isn't acting out of spite, but rather because he understands that the lady owes her new grandson the best possible experiences. However, with him and Yeondu around, none of that would happen, not to mention that neither party would feel comfortable. In the next scene, we move to Dongwook talking with his ex. The woman asked to see Sujayam once more and became emotional as she recalled the last meetings she had with the girl. At that moment, Dongwook handed her a handkerchief, and Yumayong entered the cafe, puzzled by what she was witnessing. Returning to the protagonist, in the evening she went to the Gong family house, even though she hadn't been invited to the memorial for Marengo. There, when given the chance to pay her respects, Yeondu introduced Hanol as Taekyung's daughter, not Junha's, and asked for the deceased's blessing to raise her in good health. Junha and Madam Moon were surprised by the protagonist's audacity, but it was the only way to stop the lady from ignoring her and Taekyung, for up until then, not even their calls were being answered by Madam Moon. Later that night, Junha asked his grandmother to support him in the fight for Hanol's custody. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me, and until next time.